Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, amigos and amici, everyone out there, puppies and dogs and giraffes and horses. And what do you know? It's Greg Anthony here on the Investigative Journal. Wow, what a show today. I want to talk off the top of my head, which will be interesting because I'm really using my mouth. But anyway, let me just talk a little bit about some of the comments I've gotten on a couple shows. Yesterday I did one on George Orwell and Aldous Huxley and got some really good comments. In fact, a person who used to listen to my show years and years ago sent me a long email that I'll get to. But then I turned to, I was looking through a lot of old YouTubes that have been put up regarding my show. Many put up by people I don't know. And one that rang a bell here was How the Jesuits Control America. And on that particular video, I've got 1,174 views. Very, very small amount compared to some of the other. I got 2 million views on some garbage show. And I noticed as I looked at that, I started looking to see how many views I get. And most of them, the ones I get are when I put the word Jesuit in there. So people are interested. And I'll get to that in a minute. More than they were maybe 10, 15 years ago. But I was looking at some of the comments on the Jesuits Control America. And I got some interesting ones here. One said, the Jesuits were involved in the Civil War and were responsible for the murder of Abraham Lincoln and even harbored John Surratt. He's right. We've done many shows on that, and we've got verification, not only just theory, but evidence that's been hidden from you. And that's really the topic of discussion today, what's really been hidden. And that story really has. I remember years ago when we really were bringing out a lot of information through an author named C.T. Wilcox, who wrote a book about this and uncovered some damning information from a survivor who actually had Charles Chiniquy's letters and notes that Abraham Lincoln sent to him regarding this subject. And Lincoln knew the Jesuits were after him. And that's been covered up. But when we were hot and heavy on this story back then, when there weren't as many people on the internet, the mainstream was listening, and boy, did it start an avalanche of stuff on the mainstream. Even Robert Redford got involved, and they did a movie. In a sense, they didn't even mention this. They debunked anything regarding never mentioning the Jesuits in the history of Abraham Lincoln, which is really telling you what the media is about, how they rewrite history, how they're rewriting it as we speak, and how they're lying to you as we speak with this charade of a political circus going on in Washington. And if you don't get what they're doing here, then you've got a problem, and I can explain it to you real easy. It's called the Hegelian dialectic, and look it up. You know, I was thinking about Hillary Clinton, and what they're doing to you is showing you squarely in your face that there's no justice in this country, because if you follow the Democrat-Republican game, they've showed you what they've done. They've hidden, Hillary Clinton is probably guilty of many, many crimes, starting from the time she had her private email server with government information, which is a violation of federal law, in her home when she became Secretary of State. But if you think they're ever going to convict her of anything, or this cabal, forget about it. They're the globalists. They can get away with murder, and they're showing you that in your face right now. Because what they did is they created this idea that Trump was involved with the Russians, which he wasn't. Trump knew this was going to happen. He's playing the game along with them. But what it's doing is showing the American people who support him that there is no justice. So they bring these phony claims against Trump. They spend 2 years with a special prosecutor who comes up with this theory. One, in his report, there is no collusion between Russia. First of all, collusion isn't a crime. And then the second part, his second volume of his report, was what a prosecutor shouldn't do, and that is write a term paper. A prosecutor's role is very simple. You either have thumbs up or thumbs down on a charge. So they say, well, Trump obstructed justice. First of all, you can't obstruct justice if there is no crime. He was found not guilty of anything in Russian collusion. But anyway, that's really, it's hard to do that. I mean, you can construct it if you're a prosecutor hunting for a crime. So really, what does Mueller do in the second portion of his term paper, I call it? He says, well, I don't know if he doesn't come up with a thumbs up, Trump obstructed justice, or he didn't. He leaves that up to the Attorney General to do. What is that? Why did you hire this guy for They spent $40 million and he didn't come up with anything. So then the Attorney General says, no, there's not enough evidence. So then the political wheels of impeachment are coming now. And this is all a game. It's really crazy what they're doing. And what they're doing really is showing the American people, you have no justice on your side. If you believe in Trump, you believe in America, there's no justice. But if you believe in globalism, then you can get away with murder. And I'll be very frank with you. If you follow the Clintons since the time, at least since he was governor of Arkansas, and Hillary, his wife back then, they've been guilty of many, many murders. And they'll never get prosecuted. So why do you think she's going to get prosecuted, or these guys are going to get prosecuted for simple things like obstructing justice, giving away American secrets to China, using American, private information, government classified information on private servers? Why do you think they're not going to do anything? They put a kid in the Navy who sent a picture of some classified submarine. He was showing where he worked, and they put him in jail for a year for one picture to his mother. But Clinton gave away thousands of emails were hacked by Russians, by Chinese, and they do nothing. Because they are telling you, folks, there are two systems of justice, one for the globalists and one for Americans. That's really what they're telling you. They're also telling you there's one set of laws for illegal aliens, which are protected, and there's one set of laws for you, an American, who'd be in jail for any little thing that you did if you were a citizen. So you're not protected. That's what they're doing to you. And it's going to get worse. Because what they're doing now is ushering in globalism and socialism. And you're seeing it right now. Why do you think you hear in Congress, you got a couple Muslims talking about, how they're persecuted around the world, but do they ever mention that over 350, the numbers are astonishing if you look at Christians that are being persecuted in the Middle East. It's to epidemic proportions, but they don't cover it. Churches are being destroyed every day. Christian churches are being destroyed. People are, they said, if you read a report on it, it's near genocide levels of Christians being killed. They don't cover that. And you don't hear a Christian in the House of Representatives saying, hey, we're persecuted. No, but you hear some Muslim get up and say, we're persecuted when we give them every right they have in this country. But that's a slow takeover. Because that's the Jesuit plan, because the Jesuits work with them and the Vatican. Because in a sense, if you really look into history, there's a lot of evidence that they created Islam. So I got a few comments on my video, Jesuits Control America. And one person said, people just don't know how the Jesuits' country operates. Well, this guy apparently knows something. And then we got one, says, by somebody named Miss Rice. Is it Condoleezza? No, Pamela. Thumbs up, Greg. Your views should be viewed by millions. Until it does, we won't be on any good path. Oh, and there's a couple. Let me see what the replies are here. Is there any? No, nobody replied, but I replied and said, one person says, Jesuits are mean, and they're like little boys. Okay? All right. And one person who apparently was abused when he was younger in a Catholic school, he says, I will never say anything more than the Catholic priest caused my rectum to have a pain, even to this day, and I'm 61 years old. Okay. Some comments on my Jesuit control video. Then I'm going to get to this long comment. I got an email sent by Brian Anderson. Brian used to come on my show. He likes to do a lot of research. He did a lot on Kennedy, which was interesting. I believe Brian came up with some information that Kennedy actually wasn't killed and was sent to some island. And, who knows? But we're not going to talk about that today. We know that the lone gunman theory has been used over and over again, and it's not true. So let's leave it at that. But I want to read his email because it got me to thinking about what I've missed over the years. And Brian always comes up with some interesting things. I'm glad he contacted me. And maybe if I start doing live interviews again, I'll have him on. I should start doing that. In fact, I'm going to contact the radio station today and say, maybe I'll do one show a week live so I can take calls again. I used to take them all the time. It was crazy. I used to get hundreds of calls. Now, I don't get anybody even to call me privately, let alone on a radio show. So I'm afraid if I do it, nobody's going to call me, and I'll sit there with my thumb up my, going, okay, phones are open, call my number, and nobody calls. But we'll try it. And maybe if people know once a week I'm live, they'll want to yell at me, so somebody will call. Okay. And no debt, no creditors. Okay. I can file bankruptcy. All right. So he says, comment, Greg, good that you've returned after your long absence. I don't know how long was it. Depends on how you think, what you think long is. I'm talking myself. He says, but while you were gone, I discovered another dimension of the purpose and reason for the creation of Jesuits. I've not heard you address these topics and inquiring if you have done investigating into. Well, his first one was covering up the existence of the culture and country called Tartaria. Okay, we are going to play somebody who did a 25-minute investigation into that. There was a country called Tartaria. I believe that's the way you say it. I'll get the spelling right when we go to that and play that video this guy did. So we're going to look up. I didn't even know there was a country called Tartaria. I think it's spelled like something like that. But we'll get the right spelling. As part of this cover-up, says Brian, Jesuits created the false history of Rome and the Romans. Well, that's interesting. I'd like to know that. Divert attention away from magnificently built structures built by the Tartarians that featured fireplaces like sections but no chimneys, and the structures had no bathrooms and latrines, either inside or outside. The structures, Versailles in France is a classic example, where the Tartarians structures already built on the land sold by John Carroll to the U.S. government and then renamed Washington, D.C. Okay, interesting. All the wars for the past 500 years are covers for destroying this country structures, but they cannot destroy the star forts that spread out across the entire flat earth. Okay, this guy's onto it. I believe that the earth is not round, so call me crazy, but I'm telling you, I'd rather do my simple experiments with using a sextant and also a laser and some other things than listening to garbage that comes out of NASA's mouth and that came out of Einstein. There's no theory. He can't prove anything. Science is proving it with investigations and experiments. He just sat on a blackboard and told you that there is a black hole. And he put all these numbers, x squared equals jy squared plus 243, whatever he did. And people go, oh, boy, he's smart. Okay, all wars, we talked about that. A mud flood occurred over the entire surface of the earth sometime in the mid-1800s. And again, the event was wiped out by the Jesuits. Tartarians, or the culture preceding the Tartarians, ranged from 10 feet to 20 feet tall. Interesting. I wish they were around now because I would start a professional I would recruit them, and I would then make a fortune as their agents and get them in the basketball league. I'd put 10-foot guys out there that would just throw the ball and put it right in the net. They couldn't even, I don't care how much the other team scored, they couldn't win. So too bad we don't have any Tartatians floating around. Here's some, he says he's following some videos. He says, good YouTube videos done by John Levy. John's an attorney that I used to have on my show. I know him well, as a friend. British Flat Earth. Barnabas Nagy, I think that's who we're going to talk. And one of the best interpretations of the Flat Earth is Martin Kenny. We're going to get that. I like looking up. I haven't listened to Martin. Additional great YouTube channels are Sage of Quay, okay, and A Plain Truth. I've listened to A Plain Truth. I like that. This one is especially good related to the Jesuits, the use of directed energy weapons on the civilian population. Boy, does that bring back memories, because we did a lot on this subject years ago, and I used to have people calling me all over the world with the problems of microwave weaponry, and I actually met a few who were being attacked like you wouldn't believe. And even during that period of time, I had a couple of those things happen to me, and I talked about it years ago. And I believe that it happened to be when I was doing a lot of those stories. So, did Napoleon, he says, simply walk into Moscow? Eyewitnesses on both sides say yes. I have no idea. It's interesting stuff. 5 years ago, Greg, you and Eric were the only two talking about the Jesuits, and now there is a full, diverse library of investigators that are exposing the ridiculous true nature of the Jesuits, that prove the Jesuits created reality. It was a total lie and illusion. Yeah, see, the reality is a lie and an illusion. I had to take a month break from the deluge of information because I always thought I knew hidden history. But the reality is discovered by these researchers pushes one's cognitive dissonance to the limit, and you have no choice but to experience a paradigm shift. Hope your health is doing well. Brian left me his number, and thank you for getting in touch. It brings back, brings back memories of some of the old days when we really used to get into it with a lot of people. And you know what? I remember, I know how Brian feels when he said he had to take a month off. And I took some time off like that myself because he gets so deluged with this stuff. He almost feels as if you're living in a different world and everybody else is in this fantasy world. And then you start thinking, well, maybe I'm in the fantasy world and they're living in reality, and you get all confused. And I think people know what I'm talking about. And I explained it this way, that I was the most unlikely candidate to ever talk about this stuff. Because when I was a young guy, I wanted nothing but earthly things. I didn't give a damn. I thought I knew everything, and I wanted to be a journalist and write because I thought I was stupid. And that's really what it was, because everybody told me as a kid, I grew up in Chicago, and I loved sports, and I was pretty good at baseball and football and everything like that. But, and school to me was kind of a waste of time. I've kind of like Mark Twain. When I was in school, I was always thinking about being outside and couldn't wait to get out there. And school was just something I had to do, and I didn't learn a damn thing. It wasn't for me. I learned more when I got out. And I kind of like Mark Twain in that respect, although he's much, much, smarter. But anyway, I had his personality in a sense that once I got out of school, I was the happiest guy in the world, and all I wanted to do was experience everything. And that's what I tried to do, and I figured the best way to do it was, first of all, to learn something. And so I began my own education. And the best way to do that is ask a lot of questions. So I became a journalist. And the only problem with being a journalist like me was that after I did a story, I wanted to be like that and do it, not just write about it. So I tried a lot of different things in my life and never stuck to one. But I'll tell you what, it's been a good ride, as they say. And I could tell you stories that would just knock your socks off. Because that's what you do as a journalist. You basically just tell stories. And I was the most unlikely candidate to do this story. Because when I did it, I was I was born a Catholic. I became a Democrat in the Democratic Party, although I never voted. But my good friends in Chicago were higher up in the Democratic Party, and I was good working for them. So, I used to drive around with Mayor Daley in the car, Harry Semro, the Board of Tax Appeals Commissioner. I used to work for him. And so they said, Greg, you'd make a great alderman, and an alderman is a city council member. And I said, Harry, I want to be a journalist. And he said, you're nuts. And I said, don't worry, I'll never tell your secrets because you're my buddy, and I feel like I'd be betrayed. I'm not a rat. And he said, good, don't say anything. Just make sure you tell them that you made my muffin in the morning when my wife died. And we had some nice conversations about how the journalists are a bunch of assholes trying to catch me for every wrong thing I did in my life, which I didn't do any. I said, Harry, I know, you didn't do anything wrong. But anyway, I wanted to be a journalist, so I left. But I'm thinking, man, I hate Republicans. I was in that paradigm, left, right. I was a liberal back then during the 70s, right? Hated Reagan, all that stuff. And in fact, left the country to be a journalist in Italy. Well, I was going to take the job in France, but I hated France when I got there. I said, no, I can't live here. So they put me in Rome. And little did I know, at that particular point, I'd left the Catholic faith and became an atheist. And when I got to Rome, I saw this beautiful Vatican. I said, well, maybe I can get closer to the church. So in a sense, I was trying to get back into Catholicism. I wanted some kind of faith to believe in. Being an atheist was kind of boring because I said, oh my God, all I'm going to do is live and then die and then just nothing. I don't like that idea. I like this idea of eternity. Maybe I can be a angel floating around somewhere. So I tried to get back into Catholicism, and guess what happens? I learned the truth, not only about my religion, but about the world I live in, the government. And I said, the two most, and I said, it was a paradigm shift. It changed my personal beliefs and everything. I was crazy for a while. You lose everything. I lost faith in, I said, how could these peace be? How could they do this? How could the government that I knew be this way? And they work together? Oh my goodness. What is this all about? And I'll tell you, for a couple of years, man, I was so screwed up you didn't want to talk to me. I didn't know who I was. And luckily I got out of it. And when I left Rome, man, I came back to the States and it was like a different world to me. And you know what I tried to do? Forget about it. And somebody said, you ought to write a book. I said, you know what? I might do that, but I'm going to dictate it because I'm so sick of writing. Really, I don't have patience anymore for it. I like talking. So I said, I'm completely the opposite of what I used to be, because I remember when I was a journalist, I hated people who were on the TV or in the radio. I said, the only way you can get a story is through the written word. And now look at me. So never say never. You're always changing. But I think I changed for the good. I'll explain it. But I want to get into this video about Tartaria. I never heard of this country. I want to see what it's all about. Thanks you, Brian, for bringing it up. And we're going to play that in the next half hour. So I'm going to say hello in the next half hour, turn it over to this guy, and see what this is all about. A new country that we don't know about? Wow. Or is it just a bunch of, you know what? It's up to you to figure out. Back in 3 minutes on the greatest show on earth, the Investigative Journal. Go to my website, greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com, and donate. Back in 3 minutes.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Visit crosstheborder.org, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, you can listen to the show for the next half hour, but you must declare your sex before you listen, and you're not allowed to change it. You have to look at your birth certificate. I am a male, and I cannot be a female for at least the next 30 minutes. And you can't go running into, if you're a male, you can't start looking for every female sport there is in America to try to break the poor girls' records. And isn't it ridiculous when you think about this idea, what they're trying to do about, the idea that you can change your sex just the way you feel that day. And that's really what it is. People are doing crazy things, right? I heard about this transgender. He thought he's a male, but he thinks he's a girl, and he broke the woman's body lifting records. Now, what is that? How about the swimming records? How about the track and field records that are now being broken in women's sports by men? It's really not fair, and it's really something that isn't that kind of just the opposite of what feminists were talking about? And now look what's happening. It's crazy. Don't believe it. So you can listen to the show. You got to declare your sex. That's on your birth certificate. At least, the new ones now, you don't even have to put a sex on there, right? Because you're going to be allowed to decide who you are when you get old enough. Right? No pink, if you're a woman, you're not going to get a pink bedroom. If you're a man, a blue. You're going to be able to, look at your parents and go, okay, mommy, I am a girl. And your mommy's going to go, okay, even though you were born a boy. So it's all confusing. So you look at your birth certificate. If you're a male with an old birth certificate, before they start changing that, you can't change it during the beginning of or during the show. You got to be a male. If you're a female, you got to stay a female. If you're not, please don't listen. Okay, we got to get to this story. And it's Tartaria, Tartaria, something like that. And the guy will explain it. And thanks to Brian Anderson, who turned me on to this, and I want to listen to it. I always like to, I don't even know what he's going to say, because I'd like to be excited like you. So anyway, I'm going to play this. It's about 20 minutes, 24 minutes long. Should be able to get most of it in. And we're going to find out the country, the biggest country that's been hidden from us, according to this gentleman. And we will get to it in just one moment.
Great Tartary. Did you know this was the largest country in the world? Well, I'm going to show you coming up. I'm living in a sequel where my soul and just world, and where I am not fine. It's not my world, it's not mine. First of all, I wanted to show you this article from stolenhistory.org. Actually, this is a forum post, rather, or a forum thread. And there is some good information here. That was one of the bases of my research, so if you have a moment, just check this out. Also, there are good videos on YouTube about it, but there are a couple of things that I extended my research with, so I want to show you that. I want to show you with this Wikipedia quote, and it seems that this person, it looks like 2018, April 17. This is when it was posted. Let me check the next post. Yeah, probably it is. Yeah, this year. So Wikipedia says Tartary, Latin Tartaria, or Great Tartary, Latin Tartaria Magna, was a name used from the Middle Ages until the 20th century to designate the great tract of northern and central Asia, stretching from the Caspian Sea and Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, settled most by Turco-Mongol peoples after the Mongol invasion and the subsequent Turkic migrations. And I remember something similar being said by the videos that I watched. It was just like, it was just like an area, right, or like a stretching tract. And they didn't say it was a nation or a country. So that's interesting, because it seems like Wikipedia is keeping track of what we are digging out and researching, because they updated this. So now it says Tartary, Latin Tartaria, or Great Tartary, Latin Tartaria Magna, so far so good, was a nation. Now it is a nation, not a tract or an area. Nation in the northern and central Asia, stretching eastwards from the Caspian Sea and from the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, inhabited mostly by Turkic peoples. Okay, so now they even put here a map that I'm going to show you anyway. So that's really interesting that Wikipedia is keeping track of what we are doing and updating their pages. Now, the other thing I was getting across when I was making my research is the similarity between Tartary and Tatars. So if I'm searching here for Tatar, you can see European areas north of the Black Sea inhabited by Tataric peoples were also known as Little Tartary. So basically it's a synonym for, people living in Tartary, which I haven't heard in any of the videos or research so far. And this is interesting because I never heard of Tartary before in the history lessons in school. No surprise. But I did hear we had lessons about the Tatars and the Tatar invasions to Hungary and things like that. But it was always called some sort of Mongolic people or Turkish kind of. It was said that they were Mongolic people, and it wasn't said that this was a nation or it was a country, but it was like a tribe that was trying to invade certain areas of Europe and Asia, basically. So it's really interesting that actually it seems that in Europe at least, or in Hungary at least, we heard about the Tatars, but it seems like in the USA they didn't seem to hear much about the Tatars. Or maybe again it is just the mixture or the difference between the Tartari and Tatars, because I haven't heard about Tartari before either. I did hear about Tatars. So I would like to know whether you guys, if any of you from Canada, USA, Australia, UK, France, anywhere from the West really, have you heard of not just Tartari but the Tatars? So I want to show you next the Tatars here, because I want to show you that this is really about Tartary. So you see there is like 20 results for Tartary, and it says historically the term Tatars was applied to anyone originating from the vast northern and central Asian landmass then known as Tartary, which was dominated by various mostly Turk, Mongol, semi-nomadic empires. Yeah, that's what I actually heard. The nomadic kingdoms, and it wasn't a country really. Now, the interesting thing here was, when I looked at this article, on the right side you can see Tatars, and it says total population, and I thought they have already died out, you know, they no longer exist, but it seems like there is a total population of 6.8 million. I never heard this anywhere in my research, not in any of the YouTube videos anyway. So this is really interesting that Russia has 5.3 million, Uzbekistan 500,000, and so on, Ukraine, Kazakhstan. And then it also shows that the languages spoken by the population of Tatars are the Tatar language and the Russian, right? So let's go to Tatar language, which is the next page. I will link these in the description of the video so you can have a look at it yourself. The Tatar language is a Turkic language spoken by Tatars, mainly located in modern Tatarstan. And I was like, what? There is still Tatarstan, which is basically, could be Tartaria. So I'm not sure, but it looks like they put these things together, and it may be just a deception that Tatar and Tartaria is the same or connected, but at least it seems that there are people who are called Tatars and they live in modern Tatarstan. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I checked out Tatarstan, obviously, and it says Republic of Tatarstan, which I had no idea about. And it seems like it is part of the Federation of Russia. Or simply, Tatarstan is a federal subject, a republic of the Russian Federation. So I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Here's the map. This is where Tatarstan is, which is Tartaria is shown mainly here, but also here. So I'm not sure, maybe they killed all the Tartarians or Tatars, and they basically left a small patch of country where the remainders of the people are there. Just as with Hungary, we were being a big empire, a big country, and they really reduced our size and pushed us down so that we can't do whatever we were doing. So probably there was something about the Hungarians and the Tatars or Tartarian people that was actually interesting or dangerous for the elite, so-called, those who are in power. Now, there was a document quoted from this stolenhistory.org thread, and I came to the original source, the PDF, this is an official document on the CIA.gov website. I'm going to link this again in the description of the video, and it's like a document by the CIA, right? In June 1957, approved for release in 1999, and I just wanted to read two passages here, which is interesting. Muslims of Russia, Tatars of the Volga and the Crimea, Kyrgyz and Sarts of Siberia and Turkestan, Turks and Tatars of Transcaucasia, Chechens and mountain peoples of the Caucasus, and all you whose mosques and prayer houses have been destroyed, whose beliefs and customs have been trampled upon by the Tsars and the oppressors of Russia. Really interesting. Henceforth, your beliefs and customs, your national and cultural institutions are forever free and inviolate, I'm not sure. Organize your national life in complete freedom. This is your right. Thus read in part a proclamation issued on 7 December 1917 by the Bolsheviks over the signatures of Lenin and Stalin, addressed to all Muslim toilers of Russia and the East. So it seems like these people, the Tatars from Tartaria, their mosques and prayer houses have been destroyed, I'm not sure why I'm saying destroyed, and their beliefs and customs have been trampled upon by the Tsars, which is, I guess, the leaders in the Russian Empire, the oppressors of Russia. That's really interesting. So perhaps this is the underlying story that was covered up, why we don't really know about Tartari, the greatest country on earth that ever have been. And there's another one. This was page 2, and I want to go to page 9, I guess, page 8. I think it is page 9. We can read the following. Or let us take the matter of history, which along with religion, language and literature constitute the core of a people's cultural heritage. Here again the communists have interfered in a shameless manner. For example, on the 9th of August 1944, the Central Committee of the Communist Party sitting in Moscow issued a directive ordering the party's Tartar Provincial Committee to proceed to a scientific revision of the history of Tartaria, to liquidate serious shortcomings and mistakes of a nationalistic character committed by individual writers and historians in dealing with Tartar history. I guess now I understand where has this gone wrong and why did we not hear about Tartaria, the greatest country on earth. Interesting. So it seems like Russians wanted to eliminate the Tartar history, and they had historians and writers to do this. In other words, Tartar history was to be rewritten, let us be frank, was to be falsified in order to eliminate references to great Russian aggressions and to hide the facts of the real course of Tartar-Russian relations. And this was no isolated case. In every Muslim area within the USSR, historians on orders of the Communist Party have rewritten history to distort the facts so that the Russians appear always in a good light. Needless to say, histories which present the facts truthfully have been withdrawn and destroyed so that the present and future generations of Muslims are forever denied the chance of learning the true facts of their nation's past. So it seems that there is some sort of a relation between the Tartaria and Muslims. I'm not sure if that was like the main religion of Muslim religion, Islam, or was it just part of it, or was it main? I'm not sure. But it looks like they are talking quite a bit of Muslims here, which is interesting. So anyway, these are the starting points of my research, and then I want to show you some pictures here. So here is a book that is called Bellum Tartaricum, or The Conquest of the Great and Most Renowned Empire of China, by the invasion of the Tartars, who in these last 7 years have wholly subdued the vast empire. So it seems the Tartaric Empire, or the Tatars, subdued China. Interesting. Let's look at the next one. just have to click here, open, to give access to my viewer. And this is, I'm not sure if it is the same book, but it says The Voyages and Travels of the Ambassadors from the Duke of Holstein to the Great Duke of Moscow and the King of Persia, containing a complete history of Muscovy, Tartaria, Persia, and other adjacent countries. So if the sentence says and other adjacent or adjacent countries, then it means that Tartary was also a country, right? And we are not told that Tartary was a country, nowhere we are told really. Except old books like the guy showed in that forum. So this is, I guess, from Encyclopedia Britannica, if I'm correct, or maybe I think this is probably still from the same book. It says, approach the armies of the Tartars, city of Karkaran, the first in which the Tartars fixed their residence, the origin of the kingdom of the Tartars, concerning Genghis Khan, first emperor of the Tartars, of 6 successive emperors of the Tartars, the wandering life of the Tartars, the terrestrial deities of the Tartars, and of the Tartar armies. Okay, so they mentioned it a lot, and Tartaria had its own language. Here it says, in appropriate costume and sing in 6 different languages, Russian, German, English, French, Tartarian, and Italian, comprising the most brilliant gems of popular operas. Interesting. Yeah, I think this is the one that I mentioned from Britannica, but it is an old version, and it says Tartary, a vast country in the northern parts of Asia, bounded by Siberia on the north and west. This is called Great Tartary. So a vast country. It is a country. And here it is from the same encyclopedia. Square miles here in this column. You can see the square miles, and you can see here on the Tartary there is a Chinese Tartary, independent Tartary, and Muscovite Tartary, which is probably like 3 different provinces or areas or states, I'm not sure, but it is still under Tartary as a country. And the overall, I'm not sure even the overall population, because the Muscovite is 3 million square miles, plus adding these together, that's more than 4 million. And if you look at the other numbers, none of the other numbers match this even far. You know, so this was the greatest country, the largest country, just by square miles. Okay, so countries have flags, and here it is a flag of Petite or small Tartary. I think this is French, so that's why it is Tartary, and Petite it's small. The next one. The next one is again Tartaria. I'm not sure. This is a little bit weird characters here with the same thing, and this is a Bowl's universal display of the naval flags of all nations in the world. Okay, so this is an official listing of all the nations of the world. Interestingly, never heard of this. And if you go and find Tartaria, which I'm going to find real quick. Here we go. So this is Empire of Japan, Empire of Tartary, and Tartary. So there is 2 flags. There is an owl and there is a dragon. So clearly Tartary was a nation and a country back then, and we didn't hear about this. So why on earth do they want to hide this from us? Tartar's flag. I'm not sure what language this is. Again, Emperor des Tartares, perhaps Latin, but again, Latin country, and small Tartaria. These are countries, man. Empire of Tartary, Empire de Tartaria, and here, this is another one. The flags of all nations. Flags of all nations, and this is for Schoenberg's Standard Atlas of the World. Okay, so this is not just some sort of graphic design Photoshop something. This is from a real book, you can see actually. And what do we see here right on the top? Tartary. Interesting, Tartary. Why is it that we never heard of it? Oh, actually there is a country called Pirates. Interesting, I never heard of Pirates. I never heard of the country Jerusalem either. What else can we find here? If we are already at it, it's interesting that some countries have like two flags. One is man of war and one is the merchant.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.